What is up, racing fans? This is the NASCAR Nitro Racing Series on the HSL Diecast Racing channel. If you're here to watch some Hot Wheels cars run down a racetrack, you're in luck. It's what we do. If you're here to talk about the presidential election, well, there's plenty of other YouTubers for that. We are here where it all began. Daytona Super Speedway. It's going to be a little bit shorter race than the Daytona 500. 5 cars per segment, 4 laps per segment. This is going to be a good one, and we're going to start it off with segment 1. This is a pretty stacked segment. We have 2 race winners. We have a championship contender in Sterling Marlin. We have the highest ranking driver that's still waiting for their first win in Johnny Benson. He got the pole position today, and he uses that car's weight to toss Todd Bodine off of the track. Sterling Marlin gets by him, though, and, well, Todd Bodine gets credited with a first lap El Reco. Some of the worst luck in the NASCAR Nitro Series, and unfortunately for him, that is not going to change today. Now it's time for lap 2. Sterling Marlin has the lead. Johnny Benson in second, and these other 2 cars, that's Bobby Labonte in the 18, Jeff Fuller in the 47, and they'll need a miracle to get past these 2 juggernauts, as Bobby Labonte's barely qualified for any races, and Jeff Fuller's been outperformed by the other 2 drivers up front all season long. Sterling Marlin leads that one. There's no change in positions. Now it's time for lap 3. Sterling Marlin takes a commanding lead, and Johnny Benson holds off a challenge from Bobby Labonte. And the positions don't change again heading into the final lap. It's been just the Sterling Marlin show all day. He passed Johnny Benson on the outside on lap 1 and has looked unstoppable so far. Now Sterling Marlin's got a car length and a half lead, and he hasn't even gotten off the split track yet. Smooth as butter through the turn, and Sterling Marlin will punch his ticket to the main event. Johnny Benson second, Bobby Labonte third, Jeff Fuller in fourth. Now it's time for segment 2, and we have a powder keg waiting to explode here. 4 of the most volatile, unstable cars in the series in spots 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the fireworks start early. David Green leads that lap but gets flipped after the finish line. Doesn't count. He gets to start the second lap in first place, and Matt Kenseth moves up to second place and does a donut crossing the finish line, taunting the drivers behind him. Vinnie Oonce Nightlife hanging around in the back with Ricky Craven. And much like his teammate, David Green's looked unstoppable so far. Ricky Rudd in second place. Vinnie Oonce Nightlife moves up from 5th to 3rd. And now it's time for the final lap already. Vinnie Nightlife gets around David Green and knocks him off the track. David Green led all but the final lap of that segment. Just horrible luck for him to be bullied off the track by Vinnie Nightlife. And we're going to watch this lap again, and you can see right there, he leaves the track right before a would-be second place finish and a heavy favorite in the seconds race. He'll be racing in the 4th and 5th race tonight. And now we have segment 3 in your front row. You have the 23 of Bubba Wallace and the 19 of Martin Truex Jr. Right behind them, Bubba's teammate Jimmy, our Daytona 500 winner, returning to the site of his greatest moment in the series so far. And look at Johnson Jr., what he did coming out of 3rd place like that. He passes Jimmy. He passes Jimmy for 2nd place at the very last second after getting hung up on the track, turning sideways and getting hooked on the hood of Martin Truex's car. He looks like he's dead in the water. He almost flipped on his side there. Not only does he recover, but he recovers to pass Jimmy for 2nd place. That is an amazing recovery right there for Johnson Jr. That one's definitely going on Instagram stories for sure. Probably going to set that to the Epic Maneuver song from YTMND. Just some absolutely ridiculous driving from the guy that started the season halfway through. Just overshadows Bubba Wallace's domination of the lap. Now it's time for lap 2. Bubba Wallace gets out to another big lead. He's got his teammate bump drafting him past everybody, and the sky is the limit for Bubba Wallace right now, just barely out of the top 12 in points, and caution is out for an El Reco. We've got Martin Truex Jr. upside down on the track. Let's take a look and see if he went upside down before the finish line. Let's take a look at the replay, and yes, he is over well before the start-finish line. That is unfortunate news, not just for him, but for Mark D. of Cut Rock Creek Racing, who picked him to win. But shout out to Mark D. He picked 2 out of 4 so far. That's with a 20-car field. Those are better odds than hitting a 10-leg football parlay. And I just completely glossed over lap 3 there. Nothing much happens except Richard Petty bins it, but thankfully for him, he recovers and lands on his wheels. And now it's time for the final lap. Johnson Jr. and Bubba Wallace. And it looks like Johnson Jr. gets the advantage over Bubba Wallace on the high side of the turn. For somebody who entered the sport halfway through the season, Johnson Jr.'s already got a win this year. He's really making a name for himself, and he will be moving on to the main event. Now the gates are already down for the final segment of the segment racing, and some aggressive driving by Irvan and Kulwicki. Kulwicki punts Kaz Grala off of the track in order to lead lap 1. Some unusually reckless driving by Alan Kulwicki, who drives pretty cleanly when left to his own devices. And that move worked for him. He's leading the field down for lap 2, but Ross Chastain plows under him like it's a junkyard joust and knocks him onto his roof. That's a rare El Reco in the segment racing for Alan Kulwicki. And would you look at that? Ross Chastain went from 4th place to the lead in just lap 2, and Kaz Grala went all the way up from 5th to 2nd. That was some pretty impressive driving by Kaz Grala, taking advantage of the carnage in front of him, probably getting a good laugh in at Alan Kulwicki's expense. And the gates are down for lap 3, and looks like Ross Chastain is going to run away with this. We got a battle for second going. Swervin Irvan throws a block on Kaz Grala, but Chastain just sails across the finish line with multiple car length lead, and now it's time for the final lap, and it doesn't look like anybody has anything for Ross here. Irvan tries a reverse side draft on him, but that just makes him faster somehow, and Ross Chastain's going to the main event, and Kaz Grala recovers for the seconds race. Now it is time for the 4th and 5th race, another potential powder keg ready to explode. We have a whole bunch of cars that usually end up on the roof. It's another potential powder keg. We have David Green pushing his row further ahead, and he's really trying to pass Kenseth for 3rd, and he's going to get 3rd anyway because that is an El Reco for Jeff Fuller. He's going to finish lower than a lot of people that DNF'd in the segments of other races. And David Green just flew past Bill Elliott there. Looks like almost like Bill Elliott was caught by surprise. Thought he had an easy trip to the 3rd race, but David Green is angry. He thinks he should be in the main event, and he is not going to stop until he gets there. Now the first lap of the 3rd race is some quick, clean racing led by Jimmy. David Green passes 2 cars and heads up to 3rd place. Lap 2 of the 3rd race, David Green's aggressively bump drafting Jimmy, and Jimmy tries to reverse side draft him Malad Radman style, and it works. We got Jimmy trying to reverse his downward spiral, and he gets into the seconds race, but a shout out to Jeff Green recovering from that 5th place finish in his segment to salvage a top 10. And we got a caution for an El Reco in the first lap of the seconds race. Bubba Wallace has been flown into the far corner of the outfield, and he is on his roof. He'll be credited with a 9th place finish. Not horrible, but for how dominant he was in his segment before getting passed on the last lap, that has got to sting. And it looks like Johnny Benson shoves Kaz Grala super high into the turn like he shoved Bubba Wallace the turn before. Let's take a look at these in slow motion. No more Mr. Nice Guy for Johnny Benson. He wants to get into the main event really badly. Up until today, one of the cleanest racers. Lots of main event appearances, but not a lot of podiums. But he's going to have his work cut out for him to get a podium in this stacked main event. We have our 2 championship contenders, the hottest driver on the circuit right now, and Vinnie Oonce Nightlife, who's as unpredictable as they come. And it looks like Sterling Marlin's going to come off to a big lead again. Johnson Jr. hot on his tail. Johnson Jr. passes Vinnie Nightlife for 2nd, heading into lap 2. Ross Chastain falls into 5th, a little uncharacteristic from the Chastain magic we've been used to. And it's a dogfight for 2nd place. And Sterling's got to be loving this, watching Vinnie and Johnson Jr. fight each other for 2nd place as he gets bigger and bigger lead every lap. And Sterling Marlin chokes with a lap and a half to go. That's an unforced error at the worst possible time. And now Johnson Jr., the first fan-commissioned car, is going to be looking for back-to-back W's. And they enter the turn, and Johnson Jr. spinning. It's a 3-way race between Vinnie and Johnny Benson. It looks like Johnny Benson's going to get it. Our very first seconds race winner to win the main event. Johnny Benson takes home his first win in another epic photo finish. He beats Johnson Jr., who crosses the line in reverse. Vinnie Nightlife gets his first podium 1 week after Johnson Jr. gets his first career win in an epic photo finish. Johnny Benson gets his first career win in the same way at Daytona. We had to move the race indoors due to thunderstorms, but there was so much more thunder and lightning out on the track. What an incredible race. Everybody put on a hell of a show. And just a reminder, if you build Hot Wheels, if you customize them, if you want to see your cars out on the track, head over to redlinederby.com. I'm running the NASCAR Nitro Stock and Mod Racing Series. Season 2 will be open to any outside builder if you want. Register at redlinederby.com or in the comment section of this video or any of my videos. Or you can register by leaving me a message on Instagram. Links to the Redline Derby entry page and my Instagram down below. You can send your cars to my P.O. Box. It's P.O. Box number 7, Wind Gap, Pennsylvania, 18091. Now let's take a look at the final results. First career win for Johnny Benson. That three-way photo finish with Johnson Jr. and Vinnie Nightlife. Ross Chastain lost a huge chunk of points last week to Sterling Marlin. El Recco versus second place finish, but he gains 10 of them back today. And here's our championship point standings with 3 races left to go. Ross Chastain 503, Sterling Marlin 138 points behind. Johnny Benson, Jimmy, Alan Kulwicki still mathematically eligible. Which, by the way, the top 12 rule is going away for the mail-in series. The fastest X amount of cars are going to get in no matter what, and then there's going to be heat races for the final few spots. No more top 12 nonsense. The only drivers that will have guaranteed spots in any of the races are the drivers that are mathematically eligible for the championship going into the season finale. And now if you take a look at the back markers in the point standings, Vinnie Nightlife moved up quite a few spots with his podium finish. David Green got a top 10. He moves up a few spots. Matt Kenseth maybe one to look out for in the final couple races. He finally managed to finish a segment race. And that is it for today's action. Make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, and if you haven't already, subscribe.